You see yourself as a radical. You said in a recent biographical film about your life called American Radical, that you see the world as a, quote, radically unfair place which requires a radical change. And yet on Israel-Palestine, your position isn't radical at all. It's safety first, it's establishment friendly, it's pro the consensus of the UN Security Council and other opinions. You're not radical on Israel-Palestine, you're quite conservative.
You know, that's like saying we're facing a meltdown in the economy in the Western world. So you have to deal, what are you going to do about it? Okay, I'm going to be real radical. I'm going to advocate the abolition of money. Well, that's a really radical position. It really is. I mean, and according to Marx, that should solve everything because then we'll be in communism. But what does that radical position have to do with the real world? That's a cult. I want to make the world a better place, so I'm trying to look at the real material conditions in the real world, the real political limits that are imposed upon us, and figure out within those limits what's the maximum we could hope for. I didn't say the minimum, I didn't even say the moderate. I said, let's look at what the maximum is possible.
Worst enemy. You are quite provocative, you're quite controversial. Do you think that that is part of the problem with Norman Finkelstein, that you pick fights with everyone and anyone and you end up doing yourself down?
Well, first of all, I don't think politics is a popularity contest. That when you get too popular with the people, then there's probably some problem. And there is part of me that does believe that. I am not happy at all if there's any hostility from the people who are actually suffering. Namely the Palestinians. And I can see Ms. Karmi is not pleased with what I'm saying. And that does bother me, I have to tell you. The rest of the people, I couldn't care less.
Your book, The Holocaust Industry, argues that the memory of the Nazi genocide in which most of your family perished has been used to excuse Israel's behavior in the occupied territories, to justify US support. It's an argument a lot of people make. It's an argument I'm sure many people in this room would agree with, people watching at home. But some people would say you phrased that argument in such an overly provocative, even offensive way. Look at the chapter headings, the book here. The Double Shakedown. Hoaxers, hucksters, and history. How can you say that doesn't play into anti-Semitic stereotypes?
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, just as a personal story, and I hope my publisher is not going to be offended, but when the book came out, it was originally called Theory, Practice, and Examples, the 3 chapter headings. And he says, that's so boring, we have to make it more exciting, because many people... And those chapter headings were cited by my university when it denied me tenure, so I blamed him for the whole thing. But that aside, on a more serious note, when the book came out in 2000, I mean, it evoked a kind of hysteria. And now what I say is a kind of commonplace. So if you take the case of the former speaker of the Israeli Knesset, Avraham Berg, he writes a book on the Holocaust. He refers to the Shoah industry. Now, when I use the expression the Holocaust industry, it elicited all these horrors and shrieks, and what are you saying, anti-Semitic, Holocaust denier? And now it's even a commonplace among Israelis to refer to a Shoah industry. Yeah.
In your own words, you once said, I've never been able to get a permanent teaching job in the US. Why do you think that is?
I'll simply say the facts, as I understand it, speak for themselves. If you take the example of the last place where I was employed, which was a university in Chicago, when they denied me tenure, the statement that they delivered upon denying me tenure said that Finkelstein has been an excellent teacher and a prolific scholar. So if I was an excellent teacher and I was a prolific scholar, I shouldn't have been denied tenure.
So why were you?
I think people have to draw that conclusion on their own.
Many Jewish people claim that you are anti-Semitic. Then I think that would be a problem for the Palestinian people, I think, who have seen you as a champion over the years. You were, as you say, very popular. One person called you a rock star. I think that would be a problem if it turned out that you're actually anti-Semitic.
Actually, I think that would be a problem also. My own view is that I do more personally to fight anti-Semitism by my example in the Arab Muslim world than probably almost any other Jew that I know.
Oliver, Norman says that just by his example, just by writing this book, highlighting these issues, he's actually done more to combat anti-Semitism than most other Jewish public intellectuals. What do you say to that?
That's not the view of historians who reviewed his book. Peter Novick, the author of The Holocaust in American Life, described it as pure invention and compared it to the protocols of the Elders of Zion. My criticism of Norman Finkelstein is slightly more prosaic. I have no problem at all with writers being provocative. It's what I am paid to do. But you're not very good at it. You're a hack writer. You made a factual error.
Well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I don't know of any expertise. I don't know of any expertise you have in the topic.
You understated by a large number the number of Holocaust survivors.
That's the last question.
Okay,
Very briefly.
I would like to answer
Very
that.
briefly, please.
I don't claim at all to be an authority in the Nazi Holocaust. The book, The Holocaust Industry, is not about the Nazi Holocaust. It's a book about how the Holocaust has been rendered in popular opinion and in so-called scholarship. The figure I got of under 100,000 survivors of the Nazi Holocaust, it didn't come from me. It came from Raoul Hilberg. I think you'll agree, if you have any knowledge of the Nazi Holocaust, which is doubtful, but if you have any knowledge of the Nazi Holocaust, you'll know that the world's leading authority in the Nazi Holocaust, bar none, was Raoul Hilberg. He was in a class all his own. Raoul Hilberg praised the Holocaust industry. In fact, he said my conclusions in the book were conservative. Now, Raoul Hilberg was begged by the U.S. Holocaust Museum and his close friend Elie Wiesel to remove his name from the book. And he said, no, I refuse to remove my name from the book because what Finkelstein wrote is true. He said Finkelstein's place in history as a historian is secure. And what was done to me was a travesty. So when you come along and say you're a hack writer, I attach as much value to that as I attach to the dust on this floor.
Let me ask you this. Let's carry on. Both made your points forcefully. How do you make sure that you criticize Israel? This is an open question, kind of, I think people will be interested in knowing your take. How do you make sure that your criticism of Israel doesn't cross into anti-Semitism? Because some people do. There are people who are anti-Zionists and are anti-Semites. There are people anti-Zionists who are not anti-Semites. I'm just wondering what your view is.
I am, and I'm not trying to play the Holocaust card, but I am the son of survivors of the Nazi Holocaust, real survivors, Auschwitz, Majdanek. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated during the war. I'm very sensitive to that charge. The Holocaust denier charge, I think, is like completely insane when it's applied to me, because anyone who knew me growing up would say, if anything, I was a Holocaust affirmer, not a Holocaust denier, i.e. I never stopped talking about it. As to your question, I think the problem is, what do you do with motives? How do you divine a person's motive? And I don't know how you divine a person's motive. Yes, it's true that sometimes people are going to be making statements because they harbor anti-Semitic sentiments or hardcore anti-Semites. And then the only thing you can do, in my opinion, is try to refute it on the basis of facts.